It's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk. Radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's ubnradio.com.
Welcome to Both Sides Now, featuring the unconventional duo, Dr. Shirley and Medium Kellee White. Two perspectives, one world. This is Both Sides Now.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Both Sides Now. I'm Dr. Shirley. And we have John, our engineer, with us today, and you can see him today.
Hello, hello.
Hey,
yes,
John.
hi.
How was everybody's Thanksgiving?
It was
This is our
great.
post-Thanksgiving show.
Well, I would say dysfunctional, as predicted.
You would say dysfunctional.
I would say that. I would
Really?
say that. Yep.
I wasn't with my family, but I was with your family.
What'd you think?
And coming in from an outsider, I'd say it was so pleasant.
Oh, my God,
Because
it's so
nothing
funny.
triggered me.
Oh, my God. I have the greatest quote from Ram Dass, and it was, so you think you're enlightened. Spend 1 week with your family. And that's exactly what happened.
That is so
I was
true.
back to ground zero.
I mean, the story
That's funny.
around why I wasn't with my family is dysfunctional in itself. My dad loves Cuban food. So he decided to go with his friends to Cuban because he likes Cuban food. Oh, it's Thanksgiving?
I like Mexican food. I'm going to do that next time.
And he says, so last time I talked to him before the holiday, and he goes, to me, it's just another Thursday. And I went, okay, then.
There you go.
And Sydney went to her best friend's house in Chicago. It's actually the first Thanksgiving that we haven't spent together, unless when she was little, she was at her dad's.
Yeah.
But she had a wonderful time. Yeah, it's a
Oh,
great family. And
That's
yeah.
great. Yeah, Holiday was in Boston with her in-laws and her husband, and missed you, Pookie.
And John, you had actually a very good Thanksgiving, didn't you?
Yeah, I was in San Diego visiting my brother, so it was cool. Yeah.
No dysfunction
Good.
there, huh?
No.
That's so lovely.
It's fantastic.
It does exist.
It does. Well,
Yeah.
and today,
Non-dysfunctional holiday does exist.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't seen it, but I've heard of it. And today's the Hollywood parade, the Christmas
Yeah.
parade.
Christmas parade, right.
It's a big day out here in Hollywood.
Yeah, and they had the Thanksgiving Day parade in New York.
Oh, the
so I
Macy's,
didn't
yeah.
realize that our Christmas parade was so close
Yep.
in time as the Thanksgiving, yeah.
How did they make that decision?
I know.
Speaking of decisions,
So today we're going to talk about crossroads and being in a crossroads or being in that kind of finding yourself in that fork in the road when you're not sure which way you're going to go, whether it's career, relationship, family issues. I don't know. What else is
you're
there?
going to go left, you're going to go straight, you're going to
Financial
go right.
issues. I'm going to put on my...
How do you make
readers.
choices? How do you make decisions?
Yeah. So how do we start helping people?
I tell you, I have a very funny story about
Okay.
that. I have a very
Let's
funny
start
story.
with a funny story.
I'll start with a funny story.
Okay.
I had a boyfriend, his name was Rick, for many, many years. And Rick would get so mad at me because he would say, you don't think when you make a decision. You just make a decision and you don't think about it and there's no thought. And he would get, say it over and over and over. He'd get so angry because I just couldn't make a decision the way he did, And so I would just do whatever I wanted to do and it would piss him off. And the funny thing about that, I mean, it's my dark sense of humor, is I must have done something right because Rick's passed and I'm still here. So I must have made some decisions that were right.
Okay.
With that
So on that note,
dark sense of humor,
yeah, that's
post turkey,
that
fun.
right. I think you had too much. What is that? Tryptamine or whatever the hell?
tryptophan.
is in
Yeah,
the turkey.
probably too much red wine.
Well, we all have to have a sense of humor, and sometimes, shrink or a medium sense of humor can sound a little dark, but sometimes we have to laugh. But it's interesting that you talk about not giving thought to decisions. There's been in my life that have been decisions that have been truly life-changing. There's been maybe 5 top ones. And surprisingly enough, with my left brain, it's something that just came to me and I didn't think it and I was just moving towards it. And when I started to get kind of that pattern, even though it hasn't happened many times in my life, but it's happened with major decisions, I know to go with it. When I don't have the energy to either research it or question it or worry about it, and I'm just moving towards something, it just, for example, this may sound like a not so important one, but when I was applying to UCLA for undergraduate, it's the only school I applied to.
Wow.
And
Did you have the intuition you were going to get in?
That's the only school I wanted to go to. I don't know why, to be quite honest with you. I met some wonderful people that I'm still very good friends with today that have been instrumental in my life. I don't know why. And I don't know why UCLA. I grew up in LA, so I knew about a lot of different schools. And it was the only school I applied to, and that was a huge risk. But that didn't even occur to me that it would be a huge risk. And thankfully, I got in. So decisions like that. I've just kind of come
let
to
me
me.
ask you this. Did anybody ever sit either of you down and say, this is how you make a decision? This is how you think? I mean, it's critical thinking. Did anybody ever do that with you two? I never had the experience, so I was just wondering if anybody had that.
It's so funny because no.
No. Okay. Because I was never sat down. Nobody sat me down and said, Kellee, this is how you think, and this is how you logically do this. And just the idea that I'm a very right-brained person. I'm 100% right-brained person. So for a right-brained person to make when there's a fork in the road, to make a choice or make a decision, if somebody said to me, now stop and think, just the idea of stop, as a right-brained person, I can't stop. So it doesn't make sense to me to stop. So that's like the first part of that. And the second part is think about this and that. That's a very difficult thing for a right-brained person to do. So right-brained people and left-brained people think very differently about having to make a choice. And I can tell you, if I speak for the brothers and sisters of my right-brained family
the
out
right
there,
brain hood.
the right-brain hood, we don't have that ability necessarily to slow it down to think, let me think about this or that. We don't think that way.
So how has that worked for you in your life? I mean, I know that I think most, if not all of us, can say, that whole idea of hindsight is 20/20, and it was, I didn't know it at the time, but it was the best decision I made, or at least I learned something from it. But how does that work, and how has that worked for you?
Well, it was funny. I was talking to my mom before the show this morning about this exact topic, and she said, well, you picked some bad husbands there. And yes, I did. But the third time I picked a great one, an incredible one. And I used the same process. I just went with my gut. I just go with, I don't even slow it down enough to think enough. But I would say this. Whatever choice anybody out there is going to make, whether it's a left choice or the right choice or whatever it happens to be, I truly believe that you're going to end up exactly where you're supposed to be to learn whatever it is you're supposed to be. You're supposed to be learning.
Yeah.
I really think that. Did you guys ever see Sliding Doors?
Yes, that was a great movie.
Great movie, and it's about her. She sees the guy, I guess originally, and she doesn't.
It was an old movie with
Gwyneth
Paltrow, and it's fascinating because life is so much like this, where she goes to work, and I think she was leaving home early from work, and in one version of it, she gets on the train and gets home on time. On the other version, she misses the train and takes the later train, and how different her life turns out just based on that one difference.
But at the very end, not to spoil it, but at the very end, she does meet the person she's supposed to meet. And that's
in both
what
versions.
I take on both versions.
Okay.
And that's what I mean by if you go left or right, in the bigger picture is that spiritually we do choose the big ticket items before we come in. And a cosmic joke, if you will, is free will. We have free will. All right, we have free will. God has a good sense of humor, and we actually come down here to it's like an ancient human problem that we've all had of making choices. It's from the beginning. How do you make a choice? From the very beginning of our existence, we've had to make choices.
Yeah.
If you think of it that way.
Yeah.
And I think the right-brained people, the real the intuitives, we would just immediately have the answer and know what to do because we would just trust our intuition.
Yeah. Well, they do say that, that what gets in our way is our thinking brain. That if we trusted our intuition and just went with it, that we would, and all the decisions that I've made based on intuition where it was just, okay, just go and do it. Like how I met your mom, something told me get in the car and drive. And I didn't even question it. My brain, okay, well, no, today's Monday. I'm not going to find anything. I would think about the day and the time of the day and,
Right.
And I just did it. And then I
So
met
would
your
you
mom,
say
and
that you
the
were
rest
like
is history.
pushed or divinely
It
guided
well,
to
I
that
was
make that decision to do it that day?
I was definitely divinely guided and pushed. And it's even hard for me to say that, but it was more than pushed, I was pulled. I felt it was more of a
Wow.
pulling, where my car just drove and ended up on a street I have never been on, which I typically don't do. And I walked into a building that I've never walked into, not even knowing why. So
Wow.
that's weird. I mean, that doesn't.
Yeah.
It was almost like I was in a, like I was
trance?
Yeah, like I was in a trance.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So
Did you ever, with your left brain, analyze it while you were headed down that road? While you were driving, did you ever stop? Your left brain say, stop, what are you doing?
I don't remember. I just do remember that I was kind of in a trance because I wasn't questioning it.
Interesting. Now, is that typically how you make decisions? Let's say there's a fork in your road, Shirley. How do you deal with that?
Well, God, no. I wish I could say yes, but no, that isn't the way I usually make decisions. And for the most part, they're not always the right decisions, But what I have found, going to what you were saying, is even in the people that I see, is if you're supposed to learn something, it's almost, like the universe or God or whomever however you want to call this kind of other, puts that experience in front of you
Right.
over and over again. So if you ignore it the first time, or you don't take it on, or
Right.
it'll show up again. Because
Right.
every time there's a difficulty, I see it as an opportunity to do something that is very difficult for us to do, like people learning boundaries, people learning choices,
Well, there's such fear around, I'm going to make the wrong choice.
Right.
And what's going to happen if I have to really think about this because I have to. And some people have they have to be perfect. And so for the people that are perfectionists out there, it's truly painful to make a choice.
Yeah, and that's really hard for left brain, because I'm always thinking, am I making the wrong choice? And then how
Really?
to figure it out. Yeah, and you can put yourself in this, you can corner yourself in this, place, because you don't know.
And it's painful, right?
It is painful. You really don't know.
Yeah.
And I've heard this so many times, and I even hate to say it because it sounds so cliche. But so many times the things that are cliche, they're cliche for a reason, because we overuse them because they're so true. It's like you said, there is no, if we can pull the fear out of that decision, then we're really free. Because regardless of whether it's the right decision for us at the time or the wrong decision, the lesson in the wrong decision is so valuable. And I've seen that
Right.
over and over again. And I can say that most people, do that in hindsight. It was the best decision I made, or this happening to me was the best thing
Right.
that happened to me.
And it's always breaks my heart when people come to me and they think they've made a bad decision, and they'll come in and they'll say, I should have done this, or I should have. And my mom always calls it the tyranny of the shoulds.
Yeah. Yeah.
Listen, I believe that people make the best decision that they can at that exact moment. And
Yeah.
again, I don't believe that there are bad decisions, other than you don't want to hurt somebody. You don't hurt anybody.
Exactly. Well, and if your decision caused someone else to be in pain, I mean, we can talk about it easily, but we have to live in someone's shoes whose, for example, decision caused someone's death, for example. That's hard. That's not easily said. Oh, well,
Absolutely.
what's the lesson here, So I don't want to sound like we're
Trite.
simplifying this. Trite,
Yeah.
exactly. I don't want to sound that way at all. But there is, I truly believe that there is something in it, that everything happens for a reason. And so it's really kind of, make right what you can if
Yeah.
it was based on a decision.
If you can. I mean, there's going to be, listen, there's some tough people, tough situations out there. There are people that are in, what did we call them earlier, that are having a crisis, that are having like a marital crisis.
Yeah.
And they don't know, they're making the wrong decisions constantly by, picking this one and picking that bad person
Yeah.
over and over and over. And that's kind of a drag to see, because people inevitably get hurt in that. But then, even then, I have to say that it gives the other person an opportunity to say, whoa, wait a minute, I'm not going to do this anymore, and then make their own choices.
What I do is I become curious as to why I find myself either at this crossroads or at this fork in the road, and coming at it from a curiosity standpoint, I can try and tease it out a little bit better and figure out what I may need to do or what's not working for me. with relationships, it's really hard. I think deep down inside we know.
I think so too. I've always said that when somebody comes to me and says, "Is my husband having an affair?" And that's a big one. You have to ask.
Yeah. Or is this person right for me?
Yeah.
When I work with them and I ask questions, even of myself, I find myself defending. If someone's coming at from a negative, well, what about this and this? And then you defend that to tell me that to me tells me they might not be ready.
Okay.
And so then I just work on them and what about them and where they're at. And
Right.
so there's a lot of different ways I think to kind of come at it.
As a therapist, do you ever make a decision for somebody?
No. Well, I shouldn't say completely no. I have very rarely, and only if I think their life is in danger.
Oh, that's a good answer. That's a very good answer.
Yeah.
As a medium, I get asked that all the time, so I can make the decision. And I can tell you, I don't do that. What I do is I'll look at somebody's soul agreement, or I'll look at their soul's purpose, and I'll try to help them align whatever the choice is up with their soul purpose. That's how I view that. But I'm not going to tell them to do this or to do that.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing it for a reason. I think I can better help them is by being curious about why they're doing what they're complaining about. And what is it? What does it place them in a familiar, energy or surrounding from their childhood? Let's heal that piece then. Does it, and then they're able to make their own decisions. I think the one time that I did tell someone to run away and run away fast was the partner they were with was probably one of the scariest sociopaths I had ever met. They came to me as a couple.
Oh.
And the partner left early in the session, and I turned to the other partner and said that. And I think it's the only time I've ever done that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Where you
I'm
said
never
run?
that direct, where
Run now?
Where I just said, this is scary. Because the problem is that I don't want to set up people to fail. If I tell someone what my opinion is or my advice and they don't do it, well, they're either going to stop seeing me because they want to save face, or they're figuring, I'm not strong enough to do what she told me to do, and there's something wrong with me. And that's the exact opposite of what they came to see me for. So I'll explore the situation with them without saying anything unless, again, I feel like they're doing.
Yeah, I catch myself, go on camera here. I catch myself catching my words and not saying the word should when I'm trying to give somebody advice, or if they're asking me for advice, because I don't want to put it on them that that's what they should do,
Right.
more than I say, or I encourage them or what have you. But I always go back and say, well, let me change that word, not should. You should do what you feel you should do. but so
Yeah.
that's one of the things for me.
Yeah.
And everybody in every lifetime is going to have the experience of having to make some choices all the time. I mean, it's funny. We make choices on a daily basis. I think I'll wear this today. I think I'll go to this different gas station. Or I don't know. You make different kinds of choices. But when you get to the big ones, it's funny how people do get stuck. Like, is it time to change my career? That's a big one. Is it time to change my career? And I can tell you one of the things that I personally do, and I use this with my clients and with my therapy clients and with my medium clients. I say, look for a sign out there. I will actually say, look for a sign. Yeah. So you might say with your left brain, what does a sign mean, Kellee? Well,
I was just going to ask you that.
You're
good. You
I
read
am
my
good.
mind.
I could see. I got you. I got your number here. So a sign could be, let's say you have been you've been not sure what you want to do with your life, and you're not sure if you should stay or you should move, or you're not sure. And let's say all of a sudden you start seeing, what do you call those birds that fly? Hummingbirds. You start seeing hummingbirds everywhere. So to me, that's a sign. It's a totem. I look for totems. And a hummingbird totem would mean bring joy to yourself. Bring joy to yourself. So that would give me one sign of, you know what, maybe it is time to move, because I'm not joyful here. I'm miserable here. And let's say another sign would be butterflies. You see, all of a sudden you see a whole bunch of butterflies, or you continuously see a butterfly. It's time to change. Transformation. Time to change. So I'd pay attention to numbers, letters, everything. The universe gives us signs all the time to help us with our choices, because they know on the other side we are pretty morons here. I mean, I think they know that. It's
Would
hard.
they use the word moron,
Some of
Kel?
them. Yeah, you bet. You bet they would. They have a good sense of humor.
That is so
I mean, with a lot of
funny.
love, but they know it's hard here.
Yeah.
And the funniest thing, we can get paralyzed by this silliest thing can paralyze us, you
Yeah.
know? Like, what would so-and-so think if I make a change? You know, who cares? But that's
Right.
really what happens.
Right.
People get paralyzed, and then
Yeah.
they get so much fear about making a change.
You know, what I also, and I like that, and actually I have used that.
Use the
you know,
signs. Yeah, I love it.
as in every show that we have, and I talk to you, and I go, yeah, no, I think that. I'm thinking, okay, maybe I'm not the left brain I think I am.
I don't think you are,
Maybe,
Shirley.
you know, are you trying to get me out of the left
I'm
brain
pulling
closet?
you
Is that
over
what you're, is
Yeah.
that
Now,
what you're
let
doing?
me tell you, that left brain does come in handy because
Well,
I live with Don. Don is my husband. He's the best. I love you, honey. He's so good. And that
He is
is
the
a
best.
guy. He's the best. And that guy has an equal left and an equal right. I mean, he's
Yeah.
he's a professional musician. So obviously he's got
You
the
have to
right
have the
brain,
right, yeah.
But he's very great at thinking. Now, his thinking process, he'll think and think and think, and I don't care if it's buying a clock. I don't care what it is, you know, or buying a home. I mean, this guy thinks, and thinks, and I don't have the patience to do that. I am like, whoop! I've already made my decision.
Yeah.
Like that fast, I can make a decision.
Right,
But
right.
but I love the way he has taught me to slow it down a little bit. So for us right brainers, I know it's difficult, but we can do it a little bit to slow down to make the change.
Yeah.
To think.
Yeah. And I guess for the left brain is paying attention, even come out of your comfort zone and paying attention to signs. Many times I have had signs that have kind of finished, you know, where I'm 98% ready to make a decision, and then that sign kind of gets me to that 100% to make that decision.
See,
you
isn't
know?
that interesting? So
I
what kind of
have.
signs do you look for?
You know, I don't. Sometimes I'll ask for a sign if I really
Absolutely.
don't know.
Ask for a sign.
and I'm like, okay, if in 24 hours, you know, XYZ, if I see XYZ, there's something like that. I can't remember the last time. If I remember it while we're having the show, I'll give an example. Or when something, because I also do know, my left brain does know that if something doesn't make sense, and I know my left brain, if it doesn't make sense, it's because it doesn't make sense, period.
Right.
And so I need to investigate. It really kind of helps me decide what questions to ask to investigate it further, to see what piece doesn't make sense.
That's good then.
So-
That slows you down then.
That slows me down. So,
Okay.
for example, I use it when it comes to the stuff, you know, that you're talking about in the right brain. Like if I'm driving down the road and it's very rare that, I don't know, that a skunk will pass by.
Right.
That doesn't make any sense to me. Why would a skunk pass by right now in this moment? And so I'll probably either call you up
You
and say,
call
hey,
me.
what's the skunk totem? What is that message? Or I'll look it up myself.
Right.
But so stuff like that. If something doesn't make sense and all of a sudden it shows up, then I know that it may be.
And especially the more spiritually aware you become,
Yeah.
you're going to pay more attention to signs and not discard them. They're out there. The universe is trying to help you, to keep you calm and help you
Right.
make choices. One of the things that I always tell my people to, and I do this all the time, is I sleep on it. Go to bed and actually ask your guides for help, ask your angels for help, ask your higher self to tell you what to do if
Yeah.
you need that, and go to sleep on it. Amazingly, you wake up in the morning and all of a sudden, boom, you have that idea.
Do you think shopping's a good way of practicing choices?
What do you mean by shopping?
Well,
What do you mean by shopping?
well, like
What-
if you're
what do you mean?
shopping for something,
Let me
for
understand this.
instance, you know, I'm bringing kind of a superficial level only as a way of practicing. So when I shop, I always look at reviews for items and things like that before actually just going out and buying whatever it is. And I do a lot of shopping online, not a lot, but I mean, when I do shop, it's online, especially
Right.
for the bigger ticket items. And so I always look at reviews. And sorry, Kel, I'm looking at it this way
Yeah,
because
no,
my
that's
camera.
okay.
So that's what I do, and I think that sometimes. And then I bought a vacuum, and I thought it was good. It had great reviews and all that. And now I go back and I look, and it has poor suction. It's not a really good thing. So now I'm having buyer's remorse. So that's like an idea of that I have about practicing choices and looking in retrospect to the choices I've made and were they the right choices for me.
Do you beat yourself up over the fact that it doesn't work well?
Well, I mean, I'm just like, I should have, and every time I see this other commercial for this other product, there's like that outsells the Dyson or whatever it is now because I got a Hoover.
Oh, the shark versus
Yeah,
the Dyson?
shark, exactly.
I saw that
Yeah,
too.
I'm like, I should
didn't
have got a
fall-
shark. I should have got a
didn't fall
shark.
for that.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
is so funny.
But I look at reviews and I'm like,
Yeah.
well, everybody else seemed to have a good experience with
it-
this product, but
so for example,
And then-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no. And then I also make lists of pros and cons when I'm making bigger decisions in life, so not just the superficial
Well, pros and
ones.
cons a great way.
Yeah,
That's a
that-
great
I think
left
that's a
brain
very
thing
practical
to do. Yeah,
way.
actually.
But in this case, for example, if you were in my office and you were telling me that,
Yeah.
in this case, I would explore, just the question you asked, do you tend to beat yourself up? And if you say yes, then I would say, well, can you use this as an opportunity to practice not beating yourself up? And how can you do that? And then we would explore that piece of it, because to me, that might be something that happened
Yeah.
to practice how to not beat yourself
Absolutely.
up.
Got
Absolutely.
it. Got it.
And how to then find a way to get out of it. Can you return it? Can you maybe sell it on Craigslist? Can you?
And I've been
you know,
thinking those things, and I'm just like,
Right.
every time I pull it out, and I'm like,
and find
Yeah.
and or why are you staying with something that you don't like? Why haven't you returned it if you can? So
And
so
also maybe to help somebody else not make the same mistake.
Okay.
You write a review that says,
Yeah.
this sucks.
yeah.
it literally doesn't
Don't even
suck.
pick up
It doesn't
cat
suck.
litter. I mean, come on. I mean, it's
So,
geez.
but that's just
Yeah.
it. There's so many
Yeah.
other things to explore.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
When I learned in my SC training, somatic experiencing training, the idea of exploring and to be curious. You just, it takes away that judgment and that criticism when we could be so mean
Oh,
to
yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
could you? And there's a few decisions in my life that I'm not going to get into that it probably will be my biggest regrets. And what I tell myself is, okay, it passed. I did the best, and maybe I'm just
you
kidding
have-
myself. But what's the alternative?
I'm going
to
tell
beat
you what.
myself up
No,
24/7.
You have to remember we're on a journey, folks. That it doesn't matter when we arrive, because it's the constant journey. We're never going to arrive, and we just keep going. So you're going to have a negative experience and a positive experience, a negative and a positive, maybe a couple more positives and a couple of negatives. It's going to be just like that, and then you really get to a point where you do the best you can. You just do the best you can. And don't beat yourself up. That's the worst thing you can do over any decision.
Yeah. And if you are, question why. Whose voice is it really? Was there someone in your
great.
family
Absolutely.
that used to be
Who
critical?
was the critical gal?
So
or
it's
guy?
not your voice. It's a voice that you remember hearing that now you're taking over where they left off.
Right.
And I think one of the easiest way to help people put that in perspective is, what would you say to a friend who did the same thing? And it's so interesting because they would never say, well, I would tell him he's an idiot. Would you really?
Right.
Or when people are, grieving over someone who's passed, why can't I get over it? Well, what would you tell your friend? Why can't you get over it already? No, I would never say that. Then why are you saying that to yourself? I mean, it really, when you pull yourself out of the equation,
So true.
it really helps you to start.
Well, what I also
tweaking
do to put things into perspective is I'll say, look, okay, so you have to make a decision. Are you going to move or you're not going to move? Nobody died here. Let's just pull it back. Nobody
Except
has
your
cancer.
ex-boyfriend, Ross.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Oh, that was his last name. Yeah. Yeah, he did die.
But we're not laughing about it. It was very tragic.
That was very good, Shirley. Oh, he had a gummy.
Again, medium shrink black humor. We apologize. We are not laughing at death, and we are not laughing at anyone.
So anyway,
But
I forgot what I was going to say.
well, the perspective of no one died. I mean, like it's not. Let's put in perspective this decision that you're making.
Right.
And again, in that whole idea of the curiosity, why is this a crossroads in your life? Why do you find yourself in a crossroads? Let's say it's about career.
Right. Why
You
do
know?
you find yourself in a crossroads? To make a different choice again, to have another opportunity to have a different experience. We all came here to have experience. And the one thing I want to say, too, before I forget, is that you can, on most things, you can change your mind on most things. All right, so I'm going to buy this yellow car. I got to have this yellow car. And then it just turns out you don't like the car or whatever. You know what? Turn it in, change it, whatever. I don't know. You can make decisions. Even if you move to another state, you can make a different decision.
You know what gets me by?
What?
And again, people would say, oh, that's naive or whatever, is trust that things are going to fall into place.
Absolutely.
And that is no different than faith, that people who have religious faith.
Right.
You know, you've never seen God. You really don't know if Jesus was, came and did what he did and all that stuff.
I do.
Right?
I do.
But
I believe.
But-
I'm a believer.
But that's just it. Even people who are very religious, it's all faith-based because you
I'm
haven't really
faith-based.
seen it, right?
But I have.
You have.
I have.
So that's how I live. I just trust that what's going to happen is going to happen, and I trust that things will fall into place exactly the way they're supposed to fall into place. And that doesn't mean that I kind of live haphazardly. I mean, I live,
But you actually sit down and you I think you do make lists, and which is another
no,
technique.
I definitely use my left
pros
brain.
and cons. Yeah.
Absolutely, just like you do
Yeah.
when coming to decisions. But if I make the wrong decision,
Okay.
like if I end up making the wrong decision, then I get, I talk it through, and if I want to get upset, I get upset because emotions are very important, and I'm already angry, so it's already there, so what am I going to fight it? And then ultimately I reach the point where what's supposed to happen is going to happen, and I truly trust that. I really do believe that.
Right. I absolutely believe that.
And for some people who may be listening and going, oh yeah, that's, whatever. What's the alternative? For me to be worried about it 24/7? That doesn't help me. And it would then affect my health. So why not find a way to live with the decisions that you made that maybe weren't the best, and you haven't learned the lesson yet, or it hasn't shown up yet?
Right. Right.
How can you best live with that? You're not kidding yourself. You're really trying to wait to.
I mean, you really do have to trust in the process that what is meant to happen is going to happen. And I really believe that on the other side, we have contracts in place, and certain things, if you're going to meet somebody, that person is going to show up.
Well, it's interesting because I mean that actually, yeah, you're absolutely right. It happened to me. The last person that I was
The last
with,
person.
I would have met him by two completely different
Isn't that interesting?
through my career. I ended up meeting him through a friend of mine, and it was kind of a blind date deal. But I was already treating a lot of his clients before I even met him, and I had been invited to an attorney's thing that he would have been there at.
Isn't that
so
interesting?
it was meant to be, and it would have shown up on either way. It was the
Same
strangest thing.
Isn't that amazing? Same thing with when I met Don. The same thing. I could have met him actually 20 years before. We lived on the same street.
Oh, you did? Oh,
I'm full of
didn't know
surprises,
that.
Cheryl.
You really are when you
Full
think
of
you know somebody.
surprises.
Beware.
Yep.
Really?
Isn't that wild?
Oh, that is really wild.
Very wild. But it
Wow.
wasn't, it wasn't Bashert meant to be at that time.
I know.
And also at that time, 20 years ago, I was very, very different. So,
Well, that's just it. Maybe things don't happen because you're not ready.
right.
I know
right.
things haven't happened in my life because
But
I
I
wasn't
tell
ready
you,
for them.
I really believe that on the other side, what our spirit guides do is they go, all right, they push us towards something. Like you felt pulled to go to that Beverly Hills. You
Completely.
were pulled to go in that
Completely.
direction. That's what they do.
Yeah.
They will pull us along or prod us or push us, and all of a sudden we'll get tripped, and next thing we fall, and you fall in love with the doctor who treated you. I mean, some odd things happen out there, but
Exactly.
it's to get us to where we're supposed to be. So trust with the process, folks. If you have to make a decision, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid.
Yeah. Or if you are, notice the fear
Okay.
because it's already there. And then
Does it come in the third chakra, the power chakra? Where does it usually come?
many
Cheryl?
times, my fear based on decisions always comes right here, kind of
Solar plexus.
my upper
Yeah,
belly.
solar plexus. So that would be the third chakra.
And
That's
yeah.
power.
And
Get knocking you off your power.
so it's not about ignoring what you're feeling. It's about actually tuning in and going,
Mm-hmm.
wow, I have to make this decision. It's really making my tummy feel, there's a pain in my tummy or butterflies or tightness or
Right.
going to the sensation. When you tune into the sensation, that gives you a little bit of space. And then maybe another thought will show up that will help you with the decision. Or you'll think about a guy you haven't seen in 10 years that happens to be an expert in that decision you're trying to make.
That is true.
When you slow things down, it's amazing how either images or ideas pop into your
Right. Which
mind.
is when you were saying that, it reminded me to mention meditate. If you can really slow yourself down to meditate on whatever the situation is that you're needing help with, ask your guides for help. They can do that. They can help you. All of a sudden, you might get a quick thought of something, and that may be what you're looking for.
Right. Yeah.
But slow yourself down enough, and always, if you can, if you know a logical person, like not a real too far to the left brain person, because that might really hurt you. It could hurt. So you kind of want to find somebody that's a kind, gentle left brain thinker. Do they make them? Don's one.
Yeah, he definitely is. I mean, definitely use your support system. That's something that I need to remind myself of. I tend to isolate because I feel like I need to make the decision by myself. And then I don't realize, wait a minute, I've got this wonderful support system that I can ask questions who are running by. Right. Sometimes when you're, this is the whole idea of a think tank. Sometimes when you're running something or talking about it with someone, even with 2 or 3 people, you start to notice different things about it, or you start to think about it differently, and that can open up.
Absolutely.
To make different choices or the choice that you need to make. Yeah.
It's a great idea. So slow yourself down a bit.
Just an example now that I'm going with. It's one of the top 5 in my life. The idea of making a documentary on Dr. Peter Levine and somatic experiencing showed up in my mind. Now, I have nothing to do with documentaries, the movie industry, nothing. But the idea showed up, and it was the kind of thing where I didn't question it, and for me not to question.
And the idea just came to you.
The idea came to me.
And what was the idea?
Do a documentary on Peter Levine, because people need to know about somatic experiencing, and it's going to really revolutionize the stigma that we still have as a society on mental illness. And I'm just doing it. And all of a sudden, after the idea popped into my head, and I didn't dismiss it, I just said, okay, whatever. All of a sudden, things started to fall into place.
Wow.
About people wanting to be involved, and that person told me about another person, referred me to someone else, and all of a sudden, it's all coming together.
Wow. Yeah. Isn't that great?
Yeah. So that's an example kind of.
But it was an intuitive thought that went in originally. And then your left brain could have shut it down easily by saying, well, I can't do that, or it's too much work, or who's going to help me? And you could have really shut that down.
Well, and those ideas came, and it was like I didn't have the energy to even contemplate those ideas. And that's when I know when I don't have the energy to do what I usually would do.
Oh, wow. See, for you, that's a good thing to note.
That tells me just go with it and let it fall into place if it's meant to be.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. And I get those ideas. When I get an idea, I have to I don't even think logically about it. I just do it.
Yeah.
No matter what it is.
Yeah. So it's nice
Seems to have worked for me.
Yeah. Well, and again, the stuff that doesn't work can be such valuable learning lessons.
Absolutely.
I'll literally sit and contemplate and ask myself, okay, why did this just happen? What is my possible learning? What can I learn from this? What can I do differently? What just happened? And if I don't know, then I'll just put it out there. Please let me know.
Right.
Please, let me find what this lesson was.
You bet.
And more often than not, it does show up.
Another thing that you can do out there, too, is you can use an oracle. Do you guys know what an oracle is?
No. Yeah.
John, do you want to explain what an oracle is?
Sure. It's, okay, I'm back on
Like-
camera. Okay,
There you are. He's trying to stay off camera, folks. But
Yeah,
we're
because I'm
wanting
taking a
him
lot
to be on there.
of notes as we go along.
Oh,
I'm
thank
learning
you.
a lot. Oracle is sort of a decision-making tool of cards, or sometimes not just cards. Sometimes it could be an I Ching, or
I Ching
sometimes
is
it
a
can
good
be
one.
runes. Sometimes it can be.
What's an I Ching and what's a rune?
So runes are rocks with symbols on them.
Like you would throw them, and then
yeah.
you would choose one, and
Yeah.
it tells you what to do.
I Ching is like a coin, and
Yeah,
and
I Ching's like a coin.
Yeah,
It's an ancient system.
like flipping a coin, but it's only it's I Ching. There's just different ones. There's oracle decks, angel decks, tarot decks, depending on whatever you're
So
into.
it's the kind of thing where you ask the question and then you just
Or 8-ball, magic 8-ball.
Magic
is ano-
8-ball.
is
Magic
another
8-ball.
thing. Yeah, a coin,
Right,
like
right.
we talked about. It could be anything.
Could
An
be
oracle
anything.
could be anything. It could be a sign, like this light's gonna flicker if it means to.
Right,
that could
right.
be an oracle. I mean,
But sometimes if you don't trust your own
Yeah.
intuition,
yeah,
you might say, "Oh, okay, we'll give this a try."
yeah.
So, for example, I would say, okay, I don't know if I should, I don't know.
Change. So if I should move,
Okay.
let's
Yeah.
say that had really been on your mind.
Okay. So I don't know if I should move. So I'm just going to
And
Get
then
a
all of a
coin.
sudden, no, let's say it was and I don't do tarot cards. I don't do anything like that. But let's say there were tarot cards, and then all of a sudden you picked, okay, you're supposed to pick a card, and then you pick a card and it says, move. Well, then that to
There
me,
you
that'd be
go.
like a biggest sign of all.
Yeah,
I'd say, get your ass up now.
Yeah.
that is so
Because
funny.
how the reason it works, and it's, I'm not trying to make light of it.
No,
The
no.
reason often it works is because the other side is trying to infiltrate you to help you, you know,
Right.
to make some choices here.
Yes.
I do believe that everything is energy, and I don't think anything is a coincidence. So I do believe that if I'm choosing something, I could have just as easily chosen another card or chosen. And so to me,
Right.
I do pay attention to that. Yeah, yeah. And as a matter of fact, next Saturday I'm going to
I'm
a
going with you.
conference. Are you going? Did you sign up?
Yeah, I signed
Oh
up.
my God! So we're going to go see Dr. Dan Siegel talk about quantum physics, consciousness, and psychotherapy.
Very cool.
Very
And they
interesting.
are really beginning to kind of,
Merge, right?
merge.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's the word I was
Yeah.
looking for. I was thinking mash. No, it's not mash. This idea that everything is energy and there's no coincidences into things that happen like that. And so when you talk about it, I didn't know that that's what Oracle meant. But yeah, if I choose something, I could have just as
But
equally
you didn't. Yeah.
chosen the other card. So to me, there's something to it.
This
I may
is
not
Dan
follow
Siegel?
it, Yeah, Dr. Dan Siegel.
At UCLA.
I may not follow it to a T, at times, which I probably should, but I do pay attention.
Again, they're just signs to help if you are having trouble making any type of decision. You know,
Many times
People need
what's
the help.
happened is someone has talked to me about wanting to change their career, but they haven't because, there's a lot of factors, of course. They're they have to support their family.
Right.
What are they going to do if they don't find a job? I mean, these are all very real. And then all of a sudden, coincidentally, they get fired or they get laid off.
exactly.
It's almost like they're being pushed to do something they were too afraid to do because that's not an easy thing to do.
Right. Oh, no, it isn't.
To just up, and especially when you have responsibilities. So there are very real reasons, but if you find yourself at a crossroads, ask yourself, why? And
Well,
what is it about this crossroad?
And also, your life lesson could be that you need to learn how to make a choice. You maybe need how to make. It's okay to make a different choice. Maybe that's something that you came in to learn because in a previous life somebody made all the choices for you.
right?
I mean, there's so much that goes on in this with
Yeah.
regards to what could be and what couldn't be. I would just go with your intuition. If you really feel you want to do something, do it.
Now, let me ask you this. How can you tell the difference between intuition and either wish fulfillment, like if you really want something, or left brain getting in the way? Like, how can you tell the difference if it's
I don't even
true
know with
intuition?
wish fulfillment. To
Well-
me, everything is intuition. What do you mean by wish
So-
fulfillment? Like I wish on a star, or
No. Like, I want something to happen. So is it really my intuition telling me you should do this? Or is it my mind? How can you tell the difference? Can you tell the difference between intuition
I don't know if
or left brain?
See, I know why Kelly's kind of having difficult with that.
Yeah, tell me why. Because I don't.
Yeah, because it's the differentiation between the two, and for Kelly, it's like, well, whatever your soul wants is what it's going to get.
Yeah.
And so you're saying, well, that's wishful thinking, or that's
Wishful
not,
thinking would be
it's
more
like- it's
left
like-
brain thing.
Yeah, it's more of a left brain
Yeah.
process in the sense that there's obstacles in the way, and with when it's meant to be, then you have to think outside of those obstacles, outside of that box. So I think that's what she means by, like, what do you mean by the difference between wish fulfillment and
So if someone is making a decision based, like, say, in a relationship, should I stay or should I go? How do you know how can you help people tell the difference between what they should do?
Well,
or,
that intuitively, they should really pay attention to how they feel with that person.
sensations? Yeah.
Does that person make them anxious? Does that person make them feel bad? Is that person bringing them down? Is their soul sad often? That's what I look at. And if you get yes, I'd leave.
Yeah.
But
Been
I
there,
do know
done
that.
that.
I do know that question because I think I asked that in an earlier show. Because like, what's the difference between your intuition and just your own like irrational fears or your cravings or desires or whatever versus like what is best for you?
Right.
And then I don't know if there really is a best for you anymore. I mean, it's sort of like it's best for you at that time because you're constantly evolving.
Well,
maybe?
and that is true. We
Yeah.
are constantly evolving.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what is best for you today may
Yeah.
not be best for you, in a few years.
Right.
So at that time, you'd make a different choice again.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that's what we're here for. Again, we're here for this road, this journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not linear.
It's not linear, and that's where
Yeah.
people make a mistake.
Yeah.
Okay,
It
so
is
what does that
not
mean
linear.
for-
It is
for
not
left
straight
brains?
ahead road. Thank you. It's not a road that goes from A to B. Doesn't
Sometimes
do
it
that.
goes from A to
F,
F to F to
G.
B to B to
So you mean
R.
you're going to
Who
eventually
knows?
get to where you need to be,
Yes.
but it may take you.
It's like a
through
cosmic
different-
joke.
It's like we said before in another
Yeah.
show, treasure hunt. It's a
It's
spiritual
a treasure hunt. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and in fact, that would get anybody caught up, Cheryl, on that left brain thing.
What?
If you think it's a linear line,
Yeah.
it would be
Well,
tough for people.
The left brain, when I learned the difference between the right brain, left brain is linear, logical, so linear is part of left brain
Oh, yeah.
thinking.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
It's interesting because you're a Pisces, and so it's so interesting for her to be so left-brained
I
with being a
know.
Pisces. Because I'm a
Well-
Pisces too, but you must have a lot going on with,
Well,
with
but-
critical thinking.
But
yeah.
well, get a load of this. Remember when you took me? There's this wonderful, and I'd love to go. We should get together and go again.
Charlene
There's
knows
this
the astrology
wonderful-
place.
Yes,
Astrology
it's
group.
an old house it's
In the
it's
Hollywood
just
Hills.
what you think LA's about.
Yeah.
It's an old house in the Hollywood Hills. It's a huge house,
Yeah.
and a famous astrologer lived there. Right? Tell me if I'm telling the story.
Yeah, I think Carol
incorrectly.
Ryder, I think was his name.
was his name. And he was like the astrologer to
Oh, so famous back
Marlene
in the day.
Dietrich, and back in the day of
Yeah.
all, he used to go to the studios, from what I understand, right? And he willed the house to the study of astrology.
Lots and loads of astrologers go
Right, so
every week.
It's every Tuesday, and you go by invitation. I remember you took me there, and it was right before, I think, the first Obama elections, because I remember that I went a few times, and they had
All the charts
all
up.
the charts up.
Yeah.
But you had, I don't know how you had finagled this, but it was 4 top astrologers
I did.
reading my chart. They had my chart up there, and people were just sitting around, and they were just reading the chart. They didn't
Right.
know whose chart it was, and they just read the chart, and all 4 of them discussing it. And I'm the only one that knew, besides you, that it was my chart, right?
Right.
And at one point, I will never forget this. One of them said, "Oh, look, her father is, I don't know what house or whatever. He's an engineer." And they went, "Oh, that's what kept her. That's what kept her grounded." And I'm looking around going, "Oh my God!"
Wow,
And that's
yeah.
so to answer
Yeah.
your question. That's what he's such an engineer
Yeah.
that's how he taught me to think. There was no other way. I mean, I've told this.
So then you were taught to think critically.
I guess I was, or I wasn't. There wasn't any room for anything else. I mean, I've said this many times, I'm sure.
So
that-
there was no room for any intuition.
or emotions,
Okay.
or
Which intuit
anything.
all of
And-
that would be right
anything,
brain.
right? And his send off to college. I mean, I've said this many times, and it's a big joke. Is okay, study hard and don't get into a relationship because emotions are a waste of time.
Yeah, I remember
and I
seeing that.
completely believed him. I completely believed him.
Wow. Wow.
If something would happen, he'd be like, no big deal. I mean, like he said, Thursday's just another day. And I think the same thing. Thursday's just another day. But I have to really be, empathic to people who say, it's Thanksgiving and I have no place to go.
Yeah.
And in my one mind, I'm thinking, oh, thank God. I mean, how fun would that be to not have a place to go and not be obligated to go to all these places? And of course, then I have to kind of pull out of that because that's not okay either.
Right.
And to be able to feel, that right brain, the emotional and stuff. But it was like learning a new language for me.
Wow.
It truly was.
So
And-
the
and I-
intuition was.
Not the intuition. I always had intuition. I just never really paid attention to it. But learning the language of emotions, and I learned it through somatic experiencing. First, I had to notice what I was feeling. Oh, my chest is tight. Okay, well, what does that mean? Oh, maybe I'm angry. Or
So-
maybe I'm anxious. Yeah.
That kind of makes sense because that's sort of a physical validation to your intuition. Maybe does that you know what I'm saying?
I do.
Like a physical sign to go along with the process.
You mean your body?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So like
emotions,
a barometer or something.
right?
like
Because
that.
emotions will underneath emotions are sensations.
Because that was life changing for you. I mean,
Completely
you go back
life-changing.
to somatic all the time, and it's interesting because it's sort of a left and right brain process. Wouldn't
Yes,
you
it
agree?
is. I would agree.
Yeah, it was completely life changing
yeah.
for me. Yeah, but yeah, underneath emotions are sensations. If we're feeling something,
Mm-hmm.
we will also be sensing something in our body, and that's what allowed me to then, it was like learning a new language. I was
Yeah.
like,
Wow.
yeah. So
Yeah, we're at the end of the show. Can you believe it?
I know.
Wow.
Well, we hope that we have helped you.
Make
you know,
some decisions. Go out,
Yeah.
make some decisions. Don't be afraid.
or at least begin to think maybe about it, intuit it.
Yeah.
Use your
differently.
intuition.
Maybe
Yeah.
influenced you to subscribe to this show on a regular basis
There you
on
go.
iTunes
There
or
we
on
go.
Spreaker or any of your
Thank
different-
you
yeah.
for plugging that in. Can we
Yeah.
talk about our Facebook page and our Twitter page?
Yeah, so a Facebook page is Both Sides Now TV and Twitter as well, Both Sides Now TV. And you can subscribe to us on iTunes or on Spreaker, which is, I think it's more PC based, but web based,
Never
I
heard of
would
that.
say. Yeah, Spreaker. It's a new one that we're on. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher, all these different platforms, which you can use on your mobile phone as well and listen to us.
Thanks, John. Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Yeah, thank you for
Anytime.
listening and have a wonderful afternoon.
Take care. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Both Sides Now, featuring the unconventional duo Dr. Shirley and Kellee White. Two perspectives, one world.